Here, okay, can I have push this down?
The ability to.
Taking my chair away.
Oh, no. It is 9:30.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order, 9:30. And the first item on the agenda is snow removal and right-of-way encroachment action item, Deputy County Attorney.
Howdy.
Howdy.
This is actually Jason and Wally conversation from this week. So here's the skinny. The rights of way to the incorporated towns are the towns. So that's Alberton and Superior. So what they do with their streets, how they do that, falls to them in terms of either width of removing snow or encroachments. The problem in St. Regis and the other places, but especially St. Regis, is some of the rights of way are 60 feet, some are 50, some are 30, some are 15. But when you drive down the road and look at the streets, there's places it's hard to even get a plow truck through right now. Nothing against people angle parking, etc., but the problem is they're parked back to the point when you have to plow snow. Jason's point is a lot of places we can't remove the snow, especially when you get a little berm on the side built up that's there, can't plow it. The other problem is we don't want to be running into people's mirrors, tearing off the sides of people's cars. So the problem becomes simply what do you do for a solution? Well, if they're there for 2 days, the sheriff can tow them and they're impounded, and then people have to pay a huge tow bill to get them back. Well, instead of doing it that way, Jason had the idea, what if we print a postcard, put the postcard on people's windshield that says, look, we're moving snow all winter, you need to move this, and the other things that are piled up like cement piles and things, move those now while they can. And then if people keep blocking the driveway, then ticket them, let them come to court, pay the fine, and stay out of the road and stay out of the way so we can actually plow the snow. And the problem is not just hitting people's cars. Here's the rest of it. If a house burns down, you can't get a fire truck in, somebody gets killed, somebody has a heart attack, you need an ambulance, you can't get in, you have the problem, same with law enforcement, the sheriff. But I thought before we print a postcard up and start to do that, it's probably a good idea to just let the commissioners know, this is kind of the only easy, simple solution that I see, and I like Jason's idea a lot. The postcard says, we're not gonna whack you the first time, this is about educate the people, we're blocking the right of way. And nobody's saying, back them off the whole 60 feet or the whole 40 feet, that's not the issue. Most of the pavement's about maybe 20 or 22 feet wide at the most.
We'd like to get vehicles, at least 4 to 6 feet off the asphalt so we can have room to plow, because it only gets progressively worse through the winter, And if we can tag their vehicle and say, all right, we need you to move, and then tag it twice, and we really need you to move, and then if the sheriff's office will be in with us, on the third time, we'd get a talking to or citation, whatever they decide.
And when you can either get a citation, or after so much time, the sheriff just has them towed, or the highway patrol has them towed on those roads that are highway, not just county. And they can do that, and then people have to pay the impound fee and the rest of it, and it's really expensive to do that. But after that happens once or twice, it's funny how people seem to start to get the message. And that's not the point. I'd rather not spend the money on that. I'd rather just take the time and say, look, please look after your neighbors and yourself. And it's not a problem until it's their house that burns down.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's a huge issue. So we just thought we should have the conversation before we kind of say, let's print the postcards, and I appreciate the idea of doing it that way, because it saves deputies, saves the time, plow trucks there, so why not do it that way? Good idea.
I talked with one of the big problems, Jason and I've talked before too, is where the low-income housing that HRC has there in St. Regis with the trailer houses there on Main Street. And originally, they were supposed to park around back. There's an alley back there. They've, of course, filled the alley up since then. And so if they park north and south, it'd be way better, but they don't. They park.
And that's the goal of it.
It's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And, then if you get one broke down, it's there all winter. And I mean, I admire that he got a truck through there the last few winters when it really snowed, because there's really nowhere to put it. And those streets are narrow and wide, and some of them are just narrow.
But practically, that's people's own decision to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And the other part where you have the mobile home, modular home issue, those burn a lot faster. They're a lot more toxic when they do burn. And the other problem is it's really easy for one of those, because of all the glue and all the laminate that's in those, to start the adjacent place on fire. They burn way hot, way sparky, way nasty. So when you torch one, you oftentimes torch 2 or 3, and that's that many more people with a problem.
Yeah, and I talked to Jim Martin and asked him, and I thought those were covenants that said they had to park around back, but he said no, that.
Well, there's no way they can, because there's no room, because usually the garages are, it's a one-car garage, they're filled, and they got two more vehicles at the place, you know, so they got no room, so. At least this way, you know, I thought about doing a letter in the paper saying, please, people, move on, you know, it should be the same thing for people plowing snow across the road too. We should be able to tag them and say, that's what I like about this, we can put a place in there where you can write what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
Your vehicle's too close to the road, don't plow snow across the road, just little things.
Yeah. Yeah, plow your.
And I thought about a letter in the paper, and I thought, well, that's kind of a blanket thing that they're gonna maybe look at it, maybe not. But if they know that they've been seen, you know,
Yeah.
you put that on there, say, well, somebody's at least watching me, then maybe it'll help. I don't know, try something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the record only shows that there's 3 little pieces of road that were vacated by the county in 1959. So there's a little piece of B Street that's the width of B Street and about 40 feet long that went nowhere. It got vacated. The same with a little piece of C Street, the same with a little piece of B Street. All the rest of the alleys, all the rest of the roads, all the rest of the rights of way are still there. They are not vacated. We have the record in the Commissioner Journal entries for the South. So this is not like we're lost, and the utilities have the right to be on those rights of way by state law.
Yeah.
So it's free for the power company to put their utility pole on our right of way, but it can't be in our way. So if there's a pole we need moved, either the co-op, Northwestern Energy, whoever has the pole, or Blackfoot, like their green boxes they have for the telephone, if those are in the way, while they have a right to have it there for free, they also have an obligation not to obstruct Jason's trucks. So if we have to move one of those, we just call them and say, look, this is what we need, here's the request, this is the box number, we need this moved 15 feet back or something. So if that's an impediment, like on those pointy, weird pie-shaped corners, those we can get moved at no cost to the county, and they have no choice.
Good. Good deal.
So it's kind of, but to me, if you're comfortable doing it, I like Jason's idea a
Yeah.
lot, and I talked to Deb about it, and we're not uncomfortable with the question is, that's a better remedy than it is to have people stuff towed, they have to pay the fee.
Yeah.
So it says action item, what kind of motion are you looking for on this?
I don't know if we need a motion, or I just thought, if the
Maybe just
commissioners
approve
just say,
the
we
idea.
understand what you're doing, and,
So a motion to approve the idea?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
that would be fine.
Okay, so I move that we approve the idea presented by Jason and Wally for snow removal and right-of-way encroachments
All right, in St. Regis?
in St.
Well,
Regis.
countywide.
Countywide.
This isn't just a St. Regis.
Oh, okay. You're running into it other places too?
Yeah, there's a lot of other, I mean, you just never know, you know, it could be a broke down pickup at Lowe's, it could be you know, there's been
Yeah.
lots of issues,
Yeah.
so it should be countywide, not just.
All right. All right, I would second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we will work together and proceed with that, talk to sheriff's office, make sure they're on board with it, we'll get something figured out.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wally.
Thank you, this is good, Jason, thanks.
I wonder if you put something on social media, it might get out there better.
Oh,
Because
maybe.
hardly anybody reads the paper, they say.
I don't do social media, so I don't know.
Also, when you guys put them on, if you put the cards on their windshield,
Uh-huh.
are you gonna tape them with like a red and gold tape to catch their eye?
Yeah, there's some, we'll have to figure that part
That
out,
would be-
what they're gonna be, a weatherproof tag
Yeah.
or something, so.
So they just don't get wet and blow away or
Just think
whatever.
of it.
If they have a litter,
Almost dark place with broken glass.
All right, thank you, guys.
Driver's window, sticker, big bright orange, neon green or something.
The other one the neighbors do now is super glue in the door lock. Not just one door lock, do both of them. It's really funny.
Well, that's a little vindictive, but oh well.
Little immature.
immature, but you know what? It's an amazing thing how many cars in Missoula get towed that way. You would be surprised. Nope, but people will move them, they're a problem, and then they suddenly have to, and then all of a sudden, they got a $300 towing bill and $80 a day to impound it in a chain link fence. They learn very
It's
quickly.
more interesting when they get all plowed in and they can't get out for the whole winter.
Hopefully they'll, we put a note on there, they'll get smart.
Yeah, this is a good idea.
I know that on Main Street there where they're parking diagonal there, you know, on an angle, it's really raised heck with him, you know, I mean, you end up leaving that much snow when he makes a pass. Pretty soon you got more snow, more ice, and,
Well, it's bad all year, Dwayne,
yeah,
just passing traffic through those bottlenecks.
yeah.
And you have pedestrians, you got kids, you got bicycles, dogs, coming and going, and it's a little risky.
Yeah. Sure is.
You want this chair or that chair? That's a
Take
nice
that chair.
That's a nice chair.
No, I'll sit next to you. How's that?
There you go.
That way you can pinch me when I say something really wrong.
Just grab your knee and squeeze. That's all I did. Just grab your knees and squeeze. You sure stand up straight.
You can't tell whether I'm standing or sitting anyway.
Dwayne, what's the skinny with St. Regis Avenue there, by the way? It's St. Regis Street is only a 25-foot right of way. And I was surprised at that. So is there some, it's kind of at a weird angle. But I just didn't know if there was a piece of history there or something was in the way or.
I don't know.
No clue, but it was funny to me that it's a whole different width. And it was laid out on the original plat. I'm like, why did they do this way?
Bunch of that was done like that down there. I don't know why.
Yeah, but there's nothing,
Not that I know.
I just thought you might know the history or something.
Past the background check.
When you look at it, you kind of go, what the devil? And then, like, Maine is 50 feet wide, Pine Street is 60 feet wide. So some of them, even those main routes, they're not all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, Main Street is where all the trailers are.
Is that Main Street?
Main Street where the trailers are, where they park diagonally.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he sold all those trailers except for, well, maybe all of them, I know. Yeah, they still own the land, it's one of those deals. Yeah, parking is a pain over there.
Oh, yeah. Mine is a white right of way that's 60 feet wide.
Wow.
It's a white street.
Well, yeah.
Oh, you can't encroach on it. At some point, it'd be nice if it were this much. Maine is only 50 feet wide.
I would have thought, because I walked that, I thought it was and I was just, because of how they were all parked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my thought, even now, how much you're getting right now. No snow, no nothing.
You see it
Just
from-
take them out.
Right down the middle of the street, yeah.
Yeah, just take them out. And they, literally, they still got a little bit.
Well, they actually did last time. I don't think it was a long time. They moved it out
Main
for
Street,
long
have the
time.
chain link fence,
They
the
did.
sidewalk.
They didn't put it out there.
So those are
Park, yeah, car wash, yeah, junk and motorcycles.
See if they do it again.
You're absolutely right. Well, find out.
Today's not trash day.
All right, that's what.
Next week.
Yeah, they're not complaining, but the problem with it is access. The problem with the whole thing is
Oh, yeah, they're about 15 feet apart.
yeah, but when you burn one, it gets so hot and so fast.
They're not even to the fire department yet before they can, before that wise.
15 feet apart, I'm gonna say maybe 12 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, it doesn't work there. Yeah, 12 feet apart roughly.
It's tough.
That was the worst thing down south was how close they put all those trailers.
Oh, yeah, especially in those big trailer parks that come like 10 foot apart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they do go quick, just look at that one over in First Street.
All right, it's 9:45, and the next item on the agenda is discussion for follow-up from commissioners on adherence to the law, county attorney.
Thank you. Let me just clarify, is this the law, the first one, or is this the detention?
This is detention.
Okay, then, let me just start. This county attorney is gonna request to update the policy, procedure, and hiring manual for the sheriff and the county. And in both of my requests, this is going to be the request. And it's to comply with Judge Jason T. Mark's order that was regarding Brady on September 12th, 2022 in State versus Partridge. He gave us a very, very thoughtful order. He put forth all the law and exactly what needs to be done for policies and procedures. I don't find that in our manuals. And I think it is incumbent upon us to follow through with that. The state also seeks permission to additionally mandate some rules of conduct for detention officers and field officers. They are considered peace officers in some regard. They have to follow the same rules. And that manual needs to be done. We have an ongoing, shall we say, dispute about what they can communicate and what they cannot communicate. The issues about communication with whom they should communicate or not when they're a detention officer are critical and important. The reason they're so critical is because the inmates have a right to counsel. You cannot discuss their case in any aspect with them, because what it does is I am impugned of knowing what they discuss. I may not know what they discuss, but the law basically says, no, the county attorney does know that. And the reason that the law is such is because I could play a game and say, go down and find out about blah, 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 talk to them. That is absolutely not legal to do. And I think we've got some very rigorous discussion coming back and forth from the detention office. I would like to put it in writing. Number one, it gives them clarity. Number two, it basically has what we have designed as policies and procedures that they must follow. Number three, if they don't follow, it does give us the right to possibly terminate. Also, the problem is, it could also be a legal issue where they could be held liable. So I think having that training is probably very, very important for them. And what they should communicate about, what they should not communicate about, the inmates have a right to counsel. Officers cannot communicate outside of that right to counsel about an inmate's case. Inmates must be told that they should contact their attorney if they have questions related to their case in any form or fashion. No detention officer should give any kind of advice or information even. This can lead to problems. And for any conversation that is not related to, the food, the health, the shelter, the detention itself, it probably is best left to, you could make nice about the weather and stuff, but not about any issue or anything that is related to the case. Number one, it takes the attorney outside. First of all, I don't know what was said. But secondly, their counsel doesn't know what they're talking about. And if that gets around, that could be a problem for their case. So it's very, very important. And it's not a suggestion, it's the law. So I would request to go ahead and put it in writing so that we have more information, more education, more confidence, more protection for our officers, so they have something to rely on. And you know, I think that is the best way to do it, rather than disputing back and forth and having, you know, debates about, no, but it's only this, but I think it will end it. It will probably give them some comfort on how to go forward with the inmates. And that is the request today, and I believe I have to put it on for next Friday.
I didn't make that an agenda item so that this could be open for discussion. But I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So when you say you want it in writing what we have designed and the right to terminate, who is we?
The county,
The county?
yes.
So,
It would go through the proper process and the procedures, but it gives somebody the, you know, the information, you must do this, not do this. Must do this, not do this. And it's difficult for people that are not really in the legal system all the time, because a lot of our law to an outsider doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
You know, like, why can't I talk to him? They're asking me questions. It doesn't make sense that they can't respond to that question. It really doesn't to an outsider. They don't understand. They're thinking, I'm just trying to help. Well, they don't understand that that case could get dismissed. We could let people out that are very dangerous if they insist on doing that. It gets dismissed by the court because we violated their constitutional right. Putting it in writing gives everybody more comfort. It's not a debate, it's something that they can look through, see if they can answer it. If they can't answer it, then they can call me. But I think it will take a lot of my time to sit and have debates daily on, should I do this or should I do that, or do I need to do this or I need to do that. I think having the process and the procedure in writing is the best way for everybody.
so it kind of sounds like you're talking about training also.
It is.
Okay, so we can put it in policy, or say that we can. Who takes responsibility for the training to make sure that they understand what all of those steps mean in the policy manual?
Well, it should be the sheriff's office, because it's the department, the sheriff's department, that does that. However, I don't believe that any of these policies and procedures have been set forth that I have seen.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm saying I'm willing to do it. And I don't know that the sheriff's office would know what should be complied with, should not be complied with. I can work with the sheriff's office together to make sure that we get everything handled, because it would be nice to give policy and procedure manuals. That's part of the training, so that they can look things up. And you know, rather than having at the spur of the moment to call, they get the education, they get the training, they get the knowledge, they get the confidence that they're doing the right thing. And it will take it off their plate to have to question all the time.
So I'm still a little bit unclear on the termination part, because when we follow policy, that's up to the department head?
It will be up to the department head.
Okay, so then the department head would be the one enforcing and training the policies and procedures?
It would be, but here's the problem. When it comes down to violating constitutional rights, then you might see the county attorney stepping in, because that is a problem. We have ongoing problems right now, as the county knows, and we're trying to clean it up, and we're trying to institute policy and procedure to avoid those problems in the future. And I think it's very, very disconcerting not to have those policies and procedures in actual writing, so that they can rely on them, so that we can rely on them. And I believe, you know, Judge Marks put forth a very, very thoughtful order that does give us some policies and procedures that I think need to be outlined. And that's what I'm bringing to the commissioners, is saying, look, I'm willing to work with somebody to get this done because it needs to be done. And it does have legal aspects to it that the sheriff's office probably knows or may not know. I'm just trying to offer the services rather than having debates on a weekly basis.
So at what point, or how would you determine it's time for the county attorney to step in?
Well, when you get policies and procedures in place, and in,
Excuse me, can I interrupt something here, because, you know, this is something that should have been talked with the sheriff. Mako pays over $7,000 a year to ensure that we have Lexapol policies and procedures in place for the sheriff's office. We additionally pay another $5,000 to Lexapol to make sure that the detention center has its own Lexapol policies, which are all done by legal. Every year when the laws change, the policies are reviewed and are pushed out to our people in detention. So they all meet Montana state law and everything else. You know, we've gone back and forth about this, but the county attorney is saying, oh, I'll work with anybody on this, but here we sit in a meeting that I just happened to walk into with no consultation at all about what's going on. And I understand her side of things, but she also needs to understand that when we have people who are being locked up, have no access to a telephone, has no access to their attorney, have no access to the county attorney's office, questions arise, and the only people that they have to talk to ask any kind of direction. And normally, if it's a case direction, we tell them, we're not attorneys, we don't know. But when it comes down to, where's my property, where's my cell phone, where's my money, can I have this in? We talk to them because I think that anybody sitting here in this room will know, if you have questions and you're in a very stressful situation and you don't get response or answers to what you need, people get very short, they get agitated, and they act out. These are people that don't normally play well with others as it is. Then you put them in a lockdown situation with no input at all on what's going on in their lives. And what happens is what happened Monday, where we have an inmate that went off and punched one of our detention officers twice. Now, he's a different case. I'm not saying that's what caused him to go off. He's just unstable. But we have these policies and procedures in place. We have this stuff. I've been dealing with this all week from 3 different issues. And it was general issues. One was a condition of release, where somebody was supposed to have a GPS put on the agreed upon time. And in the court papers and the release paperwork, there was nothing written down for date, time, when this was supposed to meet. So our detention officer calls up and says, hey, what am I supposed to do here? This person has questions, and it never got resolved. And I wasn't there, so I can't say it was a abusive or clash of communications, but that's the email I got. These are the kind of questions that we're coming down to when we're talking about cases. Because I have a detention officer that's supposed to release somebody to go get a GPS bracelet by a certain time. There's no time on the paperwork, so she's afraid that she's gonna, aggravate the courts or get the problem because there's nothing put in place on a time or date. I mean, I don't understand. I get we can't control the judges, but we know that there's no local place for GPS here. So let's just release them without that, or make somebody come here to put them on. But we're putting our detention officers in these predicaments, and then when we call up to the county attorney's office, these are the clashes that we start having. When we're trying to just run our day-to-day operations, because these inmates have questions. And, we're not discussing whether they should plead guilty or not guilty or any semblance of legal stuff. It's questions that they're asking us that we're trying to relay, answers to keep them from acting out.
It almost sounds to me like the two entities, the sheriff's department and the county attorney's office, need to get together and hash out a standard operating procedure, get it down in writing together, instead of one person or the other entity doing it, and they need to sit down and come up and say, well,
You are
this.
absolutely correct.
Isn't that what I just said? I think that's exactly what I said.
Well, what I'm saying
And
is
we
that-
need to have policies and procedures so they know and they have the comfort of what they can communicate and what they can't. Basically, when a court order comes down and says there's an OR or a bond, it's an OR or a bond. And if they've got other questions about the GPS and stuff, it usually is in the order that they, the GPS has to be applied before they're released. Generally, we do that. Other times, it's not in there. But mine usually will say, if the GPS has to be put on afterwards, they're to contact the sheriff's office, let them know when they're leaving, and if they're going to Missoula to pick it up, let them know when they get back. That way I can tell the court they were gone for 5 hours. I'm sure it wasn't to get the GPS, and we can basically do something about that. But if they come within the sphere of the time, it's fine. I don't know about this one particular order, but what I do know, that is if it's a GPS problem, that's for the attorney, the defense attorney to handle. It has nothing to do with us. We got a court order. We gave the court order to the sheriff's office. The GPS is for their defense attorney. If they want them released, if it's prior to release, they will get somebody in there to put the GPS on them. And then they get released. We don't have to answer time. But if that goes to the issue of GPS. But, there's other things. A lot of these guys like to write notes for the county attorney to communicate with me. I can't accept those notes. That would be me talking to their inmate. And then they bring them up to me to give them, and I say, I can't accept that. I can't accept it.
Yeah, that sounds like a real training issue right there.
It is, and my problem is I don't think they have the training before them that is giving them the confidence or the information. But yet then they want to argue, well, we're just trying to help. The problem is sometimes you're trying to help, you cause more problem. Please don't do that. So I would like to work with the sheriff's office, and I understand if we've got all these manuals that Mako has done, surely one of them probably addresses this. If it doesn't, I want to make sure it's addressed so that they have that comfort and we don't have these ongoing problems. That's my whole thing. I feel like a janitor cleaning up on aisle 5, the issues that need to be cleaned up here so that we don't have these issues. That's my whole goal. I could care less who gets an ego boost from doing this or what. I could care less. I put my license on the line for this county. I want to clean it up.
So do you see that you have information that the sheriff's department needs to have also? And so
Yes.
sitting down, it is with an open mind that they hear from the law side of it?
Yes, and part of that is it's hard to give somebody a 5-minute legal course on what needs to be done and then have them debate it with you.
Mhm.
You don't have the time for that. And I don't think they have the respect or whatever it is to accept it from me. So, if we put it in writing, they've been ordered by, the courts. We've got it in writing. they can take that to the bank.
So do you see a sit down with the sheriff's department and with you and Wally, and you're kind of giving instruction to them, and then with that, the two of you
Yeah.
make the policy and procedure?
Absolutely. And I have pulled some of the policy and procedure, and some of the stuff I see is pretty milquetoast.
We're talking the county policy and procedure?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think I have the sheriff's as well, I think that was sent to me. And I want these guys to have confidence in what they're doing is the right way to do it. I don't want all the questions and the thoughts. They need to be able to respond and act at a moment's notice. They cannot turn their back on these guys because these kind of things happen. Training needs to be happening here. We need to be following all the procedures, not just some that somebody has written that thinks will get by. We want to do it the right way. And I'm asking for that ability to do that.
Gretchen?
I have one suggestion, because policy and procedure and training takes a little time to put together. But could we do signage so that like a poster or just a sheet of paper, so the inmates know the deputies aren't allowed to do this right now. And the deputies can see that signage also and say, gee, I'm not supposed to take notes from inmates. Could we do something like that as a quick in-between stop while we work on the training and the policy?
I would suggest that would be absolutely perfect. And one of the things that it could say, we cannot violate your constitutional rights. If you have a question about these items, please contact your attorney. And that would be absolutely,
Posters already exist.
they do.
And it's on,
I bet they are.
it's on the rule books inside the jail that they have at the kiosk.
Well, no, I'm saying something where the inmates can also see it so they know not to, and the deputy can just point to that poster and
And
say,
say,
I can't do it.
I can't do it.
Who's reviewing the rule books? Because it kind of sounded like those were for the prisoners. The rule book is for the detention officers,
No,
or?
it's for the prisoners. We have our own,
Oh, okay.
Lexipol reviews all of our policies.
So how do you know a prisoner's reading that rule book?
We don't.
Okay,
It's provided to them to be able to read. You know, we can't force them to sit down here and read this rule manual before we lock you in your cell for the next
They're
24
not-
hours.
They're not gonna read a rule book. They will see a poster. I think that is absolutely a phenomenal
Good
idea. I mean, you know, more heads are better than one.
Juliet?
So I guess I have a question about where the rules are coming from. If the county attorney is going to say that these are the rules, are these coming from post, which is what the deputies go through training even before they're employed? Is there post guidance for making these rules? Where are these rules coming from? Or are these just being arbitrarily made up for our county in our county?
No.
They're statewide, put together by the Montana, I forget the name of the organization, detention.
Yeah.
And so are
It's
these?
national.
Are these not, I guess I'm confused as to if detention officers are trained on these, are they not getting enough refresher or reminder? Or are these rules that that needs to be implemented from your state or federal oversight into the training and the orientation? I have concerns about the county attorney not having guidance with that federal or state entity that says you cannot pass those notes, you cannot speak to the clients about their case, and I'm wondering where those are coming from and if they're meeting on the same page from those rules. Is the county attorney getting their rules from the same place that the sheriff's office is getting them? And I think that's a great starting point of what can we and can't we do, and what are we lacking right now that's allowing that hole to exist. I mean, it sounds like the rules are pretty clear state and federally, so I guess why are we rewriting
They're really
rules
not,
that are
and
there?
And that's our problem. I mean,
No.
so you're locked up in the jail and you have questions about something that's going on, so you write a kite. Well, that kite needs to be delivered, otherwise we're outside of a policy for inmate policies. Memo, note, asking questions. So what that does, if we don't deliver the kites to who they're asking to be delivered to, then that opens up
Is there
to
a-
the ACLU that they're not being treated fairly.
Is there a policy already in place, though, when they say, I need to talk to the county attorney? Is there already a policy, state or
They
federal?
cannot talk to me
Yeah,
legally.
And we tell them that.
They cannot talk to me legally because they're represented. When you have an attorney, I cannot approach you, I cannot talk to you about your case.
I understand that. I guess I'm questioning what other rules are needing to be written that are not already written.
Wally's gonna respond to you.
The rules are partly written, the rules are almost all federal, very few come from the state. Remember in 1953, it didn't exist. You did not have the right to remain silent. You did not have the right to an attorney. You did not have the right to not answer questions. You did not have a right to bail. You didn't have anything. And then this cool Supreme Court case came out, and that cool Supreme Court case in 1953 wrote most of the book. So you do have, every first grader can tell you, every third grader who watches TV, I have the right to remain silent. I have the right to an attorney. So the rules got written by the Fed from the constitutional guarantees that didn't exist before. The problem is getting people to understand sometimes they're gray. It's about teach people it's not as black and white. What is a question? What's not a question? Ask Bill Clinton. It depends on what the word is means. That's a question or not. So the problem is there's a guideline. So the way to get to the guideline is two things. Write the rules better, write the guidelines better to teach the staff. The other thing is the law school's got a charge in Montana with teaching lawyers, especially in people. So I'm not uncomfortable with the concept of let's kind of do the first work with the sheriff's office, get there, then once a year, have the person who teaches criminal procedure at the law school come and spend the 2 hours and say, look, for 2 CLE credits, so that gets us credits towards keeping a law degree, etc. But come and teach the jailers and teach the sheriff and have Sanders County come too. And they do that at Lake County. We tap them twice a year to come and do that on either procedure or process or ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act. But they'll do it, so we have a chance to do it. The problem is we just need to make a decision that says, let's sit down and let's
clean
start
it up.
someplace, which is the signs. It's a simple set of rules in one sense if you assume there's gray. But the problem is, I can't talk to you about a case if you have an attorney, and that's part of the rule that people forget. What's an agent? So from the days laying of hauling logs, if the scaler says the price is $41 a thousand, and the mill pays you $36, what does the agent have the right to bind the mill to? You unloaded the logs. Are they paying you 41 or are they paying 36? That's the question. Who is the agent? So the problem for the lawyers is the agent is whoever's in the equation. So the agent is the officer, the agent is the sheriff, the agent is the jailer, the agent is the clerk of court, the agent is the secretary, who says whatever else. So the problem is this nebulous deal because people will cheat. So what happens is the jailer pumped these guys for the information, the jailer went and told the prosecutor, and the prosecutor found it easier to prosecute. That's where the undercurrent comes that's bad. So you don't want to have any way that people can say or look like that's going on, and it can't. So that's why the rule is really, really a stiff
Important.
rule
Now,
and enforced. For that reason.
In Mineral County, is there any advocacy that does any of that in the middle? So.
No.
No.
They have an attorney. They have an
What
attorney,
about
that's
those
their
that-
advocate.
What about those that are not represented by attorney, that are
Well, the pro
incarcerated?
se's are allowed to contact me because we're discussing directly. But when you have an attorney and you've committed to that right, we cannot violate that right. And anybody that steps in that is related to us could be an agent. So we have to be very careful.
I understand that part, and I understand that you have to respect
Yeah.
the constitutional right of
Yeah.
the client that is
Yeah.
incarcerated. I understand that. My questions are more centered around where the rules come from, how
It's
we're
the
going
United
to
States
tweak them,
Constitution and
the
there's,
rules, not the law, the rules that,
Okay.
that back up that law. How you teach it, how you orient it, how you educate your jailers at post. I'm wondering if maybe there's a advocacy like CASA or something that could help fill your
No.
gap for the client end of it while you guys fix the sheriff's department end of it, the jailer part of it.
no.
Okay.
We can't do it that way. The they have an advocate. Their advocate is
the
their
lawyer.
attorney.
I understand that part. Unfortunately, we take a lot
It's
of
very-
out-of-county people, clients into our jail, and sometimes those clients are unable to obtain their lawyers.
They have a phone, and if they have difficulty, to be honest, they need to fix that part on the other end. Does that make sense?
It does.
We need to fix our system, but we have to start with baby steps of what we gotta do the right way with everything.
Exactly.
And so I'm trying to do it according to Hoyle, because that's the only way to do it.
And that just goes right back to what I was saying, that they need to get together, and if something needs to be discussed and
We are not
fine
opposed
tuned
to
or
that.
whatever.
We are not opposed to that at all.
And we
That's-
will do that.
That's
I
why
mean,
this is kind of shocking to me, is I
Yeah,
walk
'cause you
into
had
this
no
meeting
clue.
and now all of a sudden,
no,
we're
they,
talking about writing policies and giving termination powers to the county attorney.
well, we didn't say give termination powers to the county attorney, that is misleading. And we have talked about it, and we've discussed it, and I've even sent you emails, and I sat there and explained to you 2 or 3 times, 4 times, and I think Wally has done the same, that we have problems. So the only way, so that we don't have continual problems, I wanna put it in writing, so that we all are on the same page.
Right, oh, and again, Deb, I'm not opposed to doing that. But what aggravates me and irritates me is the fact that you're having this discussion with the supervisor in an open air community meeting, and this discussion did not happen between us and the sheriff.
Under sheriff, it has happened, and it has,
You've never once talked to me about writing policy and procedure.
I have, in fact, you even sent me your policy. So
Right.
let me, why would you send me your policy if we haven't discussed it?
To show
So
you that we have.
that is not true. And so I'm telling you, I have told you.
Okay.
And I'm
You
just
have one outlook,
fixing.
I have another. I'm willing to sit down with you guys and go through this. I will
Okay.
let you know that right here, right now.
Then-
Again, my only saying this is because of the situation that it was brought into text, not, you know, we have to be a team and we should come in here together and talk with this.
We are, and we're a team in some respects, but you gotta understand, I am a county attorney. I have a different job than you do.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we try to work compatible. But when there's problems, I have a court order I have to abide by. I'm going to clean it up. And, you know, I have not been successful orally. I am going to clean it up as best I can. And this is the way I have presented it. And we have discussed it. So we are going to, you know, that would be, I don't want to take up any further time.
No, because actually, Deb, you have 2 things going on here. You
Okay.
had what I just heard was all about the 10 o'clock appointment where discussion to follow up from commissioners on adherence to the law.
Yes.
So I think that's what we
Yes.
just covered. You guys, both county attorneys with the sheriff's department will get together and decide on a poster and then appropriate training for the detention officers, because there's a lot of misinformation going back and forth.
Right.
And then the other meeting that was to start at 10 is, I haven't really heard yet, because that's the request to amend the policy and procedures for hiring and for interviewing.
Right.
So,
And that would be, again, exactly the same thing. It's following the compliance order of Judge Marks. I have to give credit where credit's due. Judge Marks put a very thoughtful order in putting the policies and procedures, and I would imagine, before he was a judge, he did Brady in Missoula. And I think he may have followed some of the policies and procedures that they have taken out of their policy. I think that gives us a lot of leg up on how to do it. And I intend to fully comply and seek the policy and procedure manual as well and the hiring practices for the sheriff and the county so that we can make sure that we are in full compliance and that we don't ever have a problem. We have specific instructions, legal guidance, limitation as what we can and cannot do so as to comply with Judge Mark's ongoing order and the Montana state law. I don't want to go into a whole lot of discussion on that because I think we covered it in the first discussion. But I want to make sure that we're preventing future problems, county and taxpayer protection as well as the officers.
And I know that this particular issue really has brought conflict between the county attorney and the sheriff's department. So it really is up to both of you to have the same willingness to sit down because Deb and Wally now need to be involved in the hiring process based on what Judge Marks has ordered. So, look at that.
We can discuss that, that's absolutely not a closed door.
Yeah, it has to, right, it
We
does
understand
have
the
to go in
forward
effect, so
order,
to
and
talk
if
about,
we can do that, then that's what
Yeah.
we need to do.
yeah. So that sounds like both issues are on their
On
way
their way
to,
to
perfect.
touchdown.
So then when you have the verbiage, what you'd like to put in the policy, that all of you guys have all worked out, then we'll come back as an action item and amend the policy if it's approved.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we
Perfect.
do that? And, you know, it probably won't be an overnight thing because it's gonna take a lot of pieces coming together and us going through, but hopefully I will get that done as soon as I can.
So the only question then that I would have for both of you is, if you have to hire before that's done, amended and accepted, approved, how will you enforce Judge Marks's order without this being written?
Well, I would ask that the sheriff's office work with us during the hiring practice so that we're included, so that we make sure that everything has been followed. That way, we eliminate any potential problems.
Yeah, we need to talk after this then. We
Okay.
just hired a dispatcher.
Okay, we need to probably look at that.
Okay.
And you know, there's a lot more to his order that I am going to be complying with, and so I am setting all those things up one by one. So, you know, bear with me, I'm working as fast as I could pedal. So, we'll be okay.
And Wayne, this'll have to be run by Mako too, I believe, because I don't believe our insurance policy will cover it. Mako doesn't approve it.
Right, we do run everything, always any
I
changes
gave Wally
in
a
the
copy of the
policy.
draft, so I think what we need to do now at this point is sit down and look at that, and if that covers what the judge has ordered, because I think it will, because it's, again, it's Lexapol, it's done by a group that's lawyer-based, and they do it across the nation for every state to make sure all state laws are being adhered to.
Yep, so anything you guys come up with, we will run it by general counsel,
We will.
and then we'll go from there.
We got it.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Monroe County.
Actually, I'm just dying to do it, and I
Oh,
couldn't
well, here.
resist. I think we have 5 minutes. No, let me, oh, I thought you. Yes.
Good.
Oh, it's right here.
Well, it's-
I'm gonna need this fast.
We have a good one,
Hanging in there, hanging in there.
and this issue.
So
Crawled out of your new
Every
gig,
day,
right?
another plus, isn't it?
Because we have.
Strikes and gutters.
We understand.
Road to large and big acres, track B.
Miles is gonna come up, and I'll kind of explain the scenario. So, Miles and his partner.
Miles and my brother-in-law,
Brother.
Sam Knowles.
Sam.
Thank you guys for taking a minute for us.
Yeah, so they had a preliminary plat approval for a subdivision, Big Cedar. It was one of those first subdivisions that I did when I was first hired on.
Good.
2-lot subdivision. They're in the process of meeting all the conditions. And one of those conditions is you'll have DEQ review completed, right? So, and I'm currently reviewing the application. So Miles' request is, he would like to get a septic permit for one of those drain fields that's under review. And so he came to me and he had this request, and you could, talk about it, and then I'll kind of talk about the details of the situation.
The reason I need it kind of before all the paperwork is final, I'm in a fifth-wheel trailer, and with the weather turning, we don't have any water inside there. We've got a porta potty, I mean, you know, it's outside. But it's awful cold, you know what I mean? And it's not gonna get any warmer. And I can't put water in the fifth wheel because if it freezes, then it breaks all my lines. But I do have a shop built with a restroom in it and a laundry room in it. Other than that, it's a functional shop, but I mean, so we have a place to spend the winter, that's not a problem. It's heated and it's gonna work out just fine. But we do need to get out of the fifth wheel, and we do need to have a septic system before I can get out of the fifth wheel, if at all possible. So that's kind of it in a,
Let's go.
yeah, I mean, so.
And so he came to me, and I'm like, Miles, I can't issue a permit for this because it's not approved yet. Right, that's just beyond my pay grade, so to speak. And there was actually an incident in Broadwater County, this very exact situation where the sanitarian wrote a permit for, it was going through the process, and they wrote a permit, and that's the reason they fired the sanitarian. So I said, Miles, this is something that you have to request of the commissioners, and then they can ask me questions, and how I feel about it, and all that stuff, and you guys can ultimately make that decision. This is the DEQ layout. So they're working on meeting the conditions of approval.
But they're backed up like everybody else is.
Well, I'm reviewing this,
Oh, you're,
and we're under the statutory timeframe. We're fine on our end. The one thing I would say about this is they, as part of the review process, they already have approval for the non-degradation analysis. So one thing that you can do through DEQ review is you can ask for approval of parts of it, so that you're like, okay, that would have been the holdup. We got that approved, and then you can, like a sensitive parameter that you had to get approved. And so they actually have approval of these mixing zones already, which kind of makes the review a little bit simpler for me. And I don't have any problem with the application as so far, right? It's just I'm within my time frame and I'm reviewing it. So I don't have any issues or hangups with issuing a permit for this. It would just be kind of like, it's kind of like this is going to be the inevitable situation. Miles is going through all the proper channels to request this. So, but again, I don't have the authority to issue the permit. What time do you guys think? Issue the permit.
you don't see any problems coming down the road from anything in the future?
The only problem I see is if they say we issued the permit, we installed it, everything was fine from that standpoint, and then they just stopped their work towards getting it finalized. If that makes sense. Like that, like if they did, then it's like, okay, we're done now, right? somebody runs out of money or whatever happens. That would be the only issue. I guess this is the inevitable result. That's what I would say.
So you're talking if Miles ran out of money and didn't continue to,
Right. Say I'm going through this review and I send a response saying, hey, you're missing these 3 items, right? And then you just never hear back, and then the project.
wouldn't you have I mean, if it wasn't complete, wouldn't you still have a little piece in the hole to say, well, we're never gonna approve this or get this done, or it's gotta be approved?
Well, I mean, it's a hypothetical situation we're talking about here, but it
I know.
would be like, me sending letters to Miles saying, your permit's no longer valid, kind of,
That's nothing to worry about, by the way. We're, financially committed already.
Okay.
Which, and we wouldn't have been going through this for the last 2 years if we were gonna back out of it. Yeah, I mean, that's not gonna happen. And by the way, I'm kind of a Mineral County boy. I was born in Alberton, and I'm not going anywhere.
All right,
So,
we know where you live.
Yeah, you land me, you got the map.
Andy, I'm just wondering if you could explain, I just wonder if there are any other people in the county with these same circumstances who might come forward and say, hey, wait a minute, you mean all I have to do is go to the commissioners, I don't have to wait for you to give the permit?
Well, there's much more. To get to this moment right here has been a long, arduous process. So, if anybody else was to get to this point as well, as far as, hey, here's I don't know, this is like we're doing our due diligence, I guess. And if someone else did it the same way, I wouldn't have any problem with it. I mean, obviously, like, I never like when something is unorthodox, just because it consumes my time, right? But like, boo-hoo me, right? So.
So you don't foresee any problem with this setting a precedent of any kind?
No, and if it did, it would just, people have to go to a lot to get to this moment, I guess. Yeah.
And you would always let the commissioners know that it was coming?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I, well, what do you mean by that, I guess?
Well, I just mean if you had another circumstance like this and you were gonna say, you know what, I can't do it, but you can ask the commissioners.
Yes.
Yep, then
Yes.
we would have the same type of meeting where you're here explaining it and
100%.
recommending that we do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a question. It is easy to give the permit to the parent parcel, provided it complies with the specs that the subdivision will have to have when it's finally, all the conditions are met. But the parent parcel is the whole table, the subdivision might be splitting in half, this is a permit on one half of it. Why even give it for the half, when we could actually say, the permit has to comply with the specs for a subdivision eventually, but it's given for the parent parcel and be done with it that way. Then it doesn't count, that it's not a precedent, but then it meets the spec for the subdivision later. But we could give it for the parent parcel, but if he doesn't finish the subdivision, they have what they were entitled to in the first place, which is one permit for the parent parcel, and that's all.
Right, and then, so then the only hiccup would be that the parent parcel has a different approval location than the new. And so, you would just be, if let's say they did default, right, that they're going down the road, then it would be necessary, you would have to do like a modified site plan.
But if we have the site plan already approved based on the non-deg standards, et cetera, there's no reason why this site can't be the site for the parent parcel candidate. If they've approved the non-deg standard for the mixing zone and stuff for this site, why can't this be the site for the parent parcel and call it good? If we've already approved the mixing zone, which means we approved the drain field, the perks, the rest of it for where they are, I don't know why this can't be the approval for the parent parcel.
It would be, it essentially would be, when we write the permit.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. That was
when we write the permit, it would be for the parent parcel.
Yeah, and we solve a lot of problems that way, there's no precedent argument, we've solved his problem for the winter. We have the system installed for what Andy wants it to look like when the subdivision conditions are all finally met, then when it's approved, we're good. Then one of the systems is in, but it was in as an existing system on the parent parcel, he doesn't get a third system, he still gets one for each parcel that's the subdivision, but one's already there on the parent parcel, they split, and the other one goes there on the new parcel, and you're there. That's my thought for how to do it, and I think that's fairly simple and straightforward, and I know the person who got exit Broadwater County, there was more to the story.
Oh, yeah, always more to the story.
There was a lot more to the story, trust me, yeah, that's okay. But anyway, I know where you're going, but I'm trying to say is there's an easier way to get us to the same place with the same things met, without having to do this whole discussion of the precedent and whatever else, no. And the other thing is when he gets the permit, it says, this is not the precedent for approval of the second lot subdivision, whatever else, this is not the argument that gets him approved. So he's waived on using this as the leverage to say, well, now I get my subdivision this minute. No, you don't. You got one system installed that was required by the subdivision, it meets it for the parent parcel. You won't have to do a third one, but you still have to do that one in your other conditions, and you're fine. So if that's okay, Andy, that'd be my advice on how to do it.
Yeah, no, that's fine, I just don't know I'm just sitting here, I don't know the parent parcel scenario. It's track B at Big Sear. But yeah, we can.
We can just use the parent parcel.
We can look back at it.
Because if you've already got the mixing zone and stuff approved, we're there, basically. It's not a function of that, it's a function of just, we gotta redefine the legal to be the parent parcel, and write the disclaimer, and we're good.
Yeah.
And I think Andy has the power to do that way, without having to go through the channels otherwise, because that's.
Yeah, I'm just sensitive, I'm sensitive around it because of a,
And I appreciate.
a Broadwater incident.
And I appreciate you being sensitive, but what I'm saying is I don't think that this has to be a commissioner appeal decision that way. I think we can do it that way in the capacity you have as the person who does the sanitation work otherwise.
Yeah. You guys are okay with that?
And for what it's worth, it would be me who has to defend it. And believe me, I am more than comfortable defending doing it that way.
Yeah.
That I would defend happily.
So are you doing it the way we wrote the request, or are you changing it and doing it to what Wally is saying?
Yeah, we're gonna issue it as a permit on track B of Big Sear. With this as the new layout.
So is it correct then that we would move to approve the issuance of a septic prior to final plat improvement?
No, I think what Wally's saying is that that's not necessary.
Okay,
It's more like you heard a recommendation from me. It's like almost like me just vocalizing in a public forum kind of the scenario that we're gonna do, so that any issue arises.
But do you still need a motion on this?
I don't think
No.
so.
Oh, we don't need a motion.
No.
Oh, then,
Okay.
better yet. Okay.
So the permit is given on the
You're gonna go do
table,
it right
not
away.
half the table.
Okay.
That's the easy way to look at it. What we're doing is we're using the table description instead of the half the table description. But as long as this complies with what the half table requires, it's not gonna cost him money later, cost modifications, cost Andy grief. It gets us where we need to go for the winter, happily. And you still have to do all the stuff for your subdivision.
Not a problem.
You gotta apply for a permit.
Let's go
Yes.
do it.
All right.
I'm good, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you. I think that I have met you actually. When I see you, I didn't recognize the name, but I think we have met.
I believe we met back in August of 2000.
Oh, I'm sure that's what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you nod the gavel?
Oh.
I wasn't.
No, you said you were gonna do it this time.
Do I have to say anything or just get to knock it?
However you wanna do it. Charlie?
That concludes the last meeting for today.
Until.
Until 11:30, public comment.
I need signatures around for the bank since Laura